Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Lovely to see that we have 22 people already in the Livestorm event, and 14 of you have had a chance to join our presentation and vote on your experience with hosting a retro. So we're seeing that we're having a little bit of a spread of people that have or have kind of hosted a retro, but also some people that have not had a chance to do that yet, and maybe some people that want to learn a little bit more about what retros are. And hopefully today's webinar can answer all of the questions for all of the people. Today, we are focusing on using Mentimeter for your retrospectives. My name is Astra, and with me today, I have my colleague Paula, and we are from the marketing and sales teams in Mentimeter, working specifically with our clients in organizations. So there are a couple of things that we want to get out of the way before we get started. And the first is that we would really love to have you experience what it's like to be a voter on Mentimeter. So this will be an interactive webinar, and we really want you to engage with all of the questions that we're asking and all of the insights that we're looking to get from you guys. And to get started and get ready to engage, I will pull up this QR code, and this is how you can join the Mentimeter presentation and vote on all of the questions that we will be sharing with you in the slides. So just open up your camera app and scan the QR code, and then you will be taken to the Menti presentation. A couple of more things. This webinar will be recorded. So you will get the recording afterwards. And the way that Paula and I have designed the webinar for you guys today is that we will be showing quite a lot of different examples of the questions that you can ask to your audience during or following up with your retros. So we might not have the time to, gather everyone's votes on all of the questions, but you will be receiving this presentation after the webinar is over. So you will have the chance to just, copy the slides that you saw today and use them yourselves in your own retros, either now in Q4 and end of 2022, or maybe, Q1 or whatever sprint you guys might be having. Let's see what else. So during the webinar, feel free to submit questions in our Q&A. And the way that this works is that you just open up the Menti on your phone, and then you click on Open Q&A and ask a new question. And here you can type in any questions, and we will get to answering them towards the end of the webinar. If there are any questions that you see and really want answered, you can also thumbs up the questions to make sure that we have the time to get through them. All right, so today we will be going shortly over retrospectives and what they are and why they are a good thing to host with your team. Then we will dive into how you can use Mentimeter to plan your retro, as well as make your actual retro more engaging using Mentimeter. We will also look at how you can use Mentimeter to follow up on your retro, so kind of covering the whole 3 phases of what you might see with any retrospective. We will talk a little bit about Mentimeter in an organization, so how you can use it together with your colleagues, and then we will get to the Q&A towards the end. So I believe that it is time for us to jump into a quick discussion of what retrospectives are and why they are good for your team. So a retro is short for a retrospective, and it is typically a team meeting. I think retros can often be associated with product teams and developers, but really any team that works on a common goal together can have a retro to look back, reflect, and improve their ways of working. So typically you would have a retrospective at the end of a sprint, project, a period of time, anything where you have had a common effort to get something accomplished and you want to reflect on how you worked. And they are a very great thing to do as often as you can and wherever applicable. And I would love to hear from you of why you think it could be good to have a retrospective. And here we have a couple of options. So it's either about, highlighting my challenges and blockers, maybe hearing others' challenges and perspectives, or coming up with improvements, or creating more alignment within the team. So we can see we have questions or the answers coming in. You can vote for multiple answers. I didn't mention that. And it seems like we have quite a lot of favorites for the coming up with improvements. And that is indeed one of the best things with having a retrospective. Not only are you reflecting, but you're also thinking of how the next project period or sprint can be even better than the one before. And we are soon jumping into the practical examples of using Mentimeter. But before we do that, I'll just pull up the QR code one more time, just in case there's anyone who joined us late and hasn't had a chance to join the presentation. So join the Menti, interact with the questions, and let's make the content of today's webinar together, essentially. All right, I believe that it is time for Paula to take over.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So we're getting to how to plan your own retro. So yeah, let's get going. So I think one of the most important things, or I think we believe that one of the most important things is serving your participants' interests before actually having this meeting. So in this case, like here we have like the examples, or like making surveys in audience space, having open-ended questions, and having different ranking options, so that then you can create the actual content, right? Because everybody prioritizes things differently. So first, what you would do if you're sending a survey is, of course, putting the Menti in audience space. If you didn't know how to do it, you can do it through the settings, and in that way, people will be able to go through the Menti presentations themselves, so they can do it at their own time also. So here, for example, you can help us with a few votes, and or like answers. What would you like us to focus in or retro, for example? So this is like something that you can, of course, like ask beforehand, so that you know exactly what your team wants to know. This would be like a very team focused experience, right? And aside from like also taking the lead, letting other people participate in how you want to see it. Awesome. Let's get going because reflect on project goals. Yes. Success stories. I like that. Being positive. Very, very positive into how the year went. And then, for example, you could also ask them, let's say maybe you want first to ask them like what they would like to do, and then with the highest ones, then you can then ask them like what they want prioritized, or if you already know what you want to talk about, then you can, this way you can send them like a mentee, and then they will be able to vote into what they think would is the most important thing. And then you can also set like time expectations, and like maybe you decide that like there's one point that nobody wants to talk about, or has like very yeah, very few votes. So maybe you can like leave less time for it, or just leave it for the end or another time. So very important to know the content, right, before going into preparing the presentation for your retro. If you see me with my phone, I'm sorry, I'm using the Menti mode, just in case you think I'm doing something else. No. So once you do this, then when you already engage people to create your retro, now you're going to engage them while presenting your retro. So the idea to use Mentimeter in a retro is not only showing numbers or the things that happened, the positive things that happened, for example, as someone said, but also like, yeah, having the opinions about those things that happened. So for example, first, like setting the stage, of course, like before starting, like Ostra did now, asking if you've ever done a retro before, it's important to ask like a cute question, and just trying to get like the focus into what you're gonna get in the retro, so that you set the stage. Everybody's like focused in what you're gonna be talking about. For example, here you could use a pin on image and ask them like, how do you feel the year was? And I feel like this is a very cool interactive way into understanding also how people felt, instead of like showing a graph, for example. um, Interesting. Roller coaster is going up, carousel, we have everything. Great. So everybody has been having different yeah, everybody has been having different years. Interesting. So now that like you you have set the stage, then you can gather data, as I said, like reflecting on the discussion points that you already set. So for example, you can ask them how they feel about your ways of working. So if, like, I don't know, for example, they need to do more manual work, if we are like in automation, do we think we work smart or not? These are ways to like understand a little bit where the team is also, in terms of, well, this is an example, but of course you can do it with however this would affect you, right? Interesting though, I like it that like you, most of all things, like everybody works smart. I like that. I like working smart.
I
That like
think no one would like to admit that they're not working smart, but we can
that
be pretty
yeah.
honest about whether we need automation or need to be more manual. It's fun to see.
Absolutely. And it also shows like the work smart. So, um, interesting, interesting findings from the crowd. Mm-mm-mm. Or, for example, after showing numbers for like each month, for example, you can ask like their stress levels during those months, or you can show previous trends from like previous mentees that you have done. But you can do it in a lot of different ways, but it's also good to understand, like, aside from knowing how good or bad the team has done, what their stress level has been. So nice. um I wish that the people that have high levels of stress, please take some time and focus on getting well and not getting too stressed out, to keep on going. And then, as I said before, maybe you know like the stress levels, but you also want to know like how did the team performed for them, right? Like objectively, subjectively, how did it go? So then you would know like, oh, we delivered enough, for example, but there was like a high level of stress. Then maybe it's time to like revisit some things that you're working on. So it's just important data to understand for the next steps for next year, basically, to understand how the team felt about them. And then after that, after you gather the ideas, then you can gather the data. You can generate ideas and initiatives for next year, which is one of the most important points of like retrospective, as you guys voted also. It is very important to understand what happened, so that then we can either recreate it or change it, and influence the next spring period or year. In this case, like, we can ask, like, again, an open-ended question being like, what can we start, stop, or continue doing regarding the subject that you wish to, let's say, like ways of working? Should we start having more automation? Should we continue, um, delivering more quickly, for example, answering people more quickly? Yes. Start using Menti more. Yes, absolutely. I like more automation. That's my number one saying. Interesting. I like this. I'm gonna put this in my like personal like mood board for like next year of things I should start doing also. But yeah, and this is like usually basically how you can like have data, then you can like you will get an Excel, and then you can just decide what you will focus on.
I have to comment, I really love the answer, stop procrastinating as much when something is hard. I think that there is a beautiful lesson there that hard things should not stop us from delivering.
Yeah,
So kudos to whoever submitted this.
we love it.
All right. And, once you have done setting the stage and you've had a chance to uh, find out how your team has felt and what they have thought during the previous period, once you've had a chance to generate a couple of ideas of what you want to do in the future, it is then, of course, time to do something with that information. I think a lot of us can relate that it's really easy to generate ideas, have really productive and good discussions, but then follow looking up and, kind of continuing with the information that you have gathered. So we have a couple of suggestions on how you can use Mentimeter to follow up on your retro as well. Starting with, again, doing this in audience pace. So your audience, you don't have to do this during the retro. You can really take the time afterwards as the leader of the retro to look through what has been discussed, kind of make a couple of different main themes, and then send a survey to your team afterwards. This is a slide that I really like. This is, again, the pin on image. So essentially, here you can just, compile the ideas that your team presented, for example, with the open-ended question. And you can then ask them to put a pin on what they want to like most focus on in the next period or sprint. We have a couple of lovely ones. I really like this diagram in general. I think it's lovely for aligning teams and kind of seeing where the focus should be placed. I love that we're seeing a lot of work-life balance and also mental and physical health, as well as fulfillment at work.
I think that like
That's something.
relates a lot to like the high stress levels that we've seen before, so it's good to see.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that this is a really relevant reflection as well for what you will see when using Mentimeter in your retros. Sometimes people might have had like maybe a tougher time during the previous period, and they might not always feel comfortable voicing everything out. But with Mentimeter, they have the chance to anonymously submit their true opinion and their true feelings. And I think in that way, you as a leader can much better cater and help your team move forward. They're able to share openly, and then you can see what are the top areas. And for us, with this question, it's definitely the work-life balance. So I think that's a really good commitment for all of us here today going into 2023. You can also use Mentimeter to gather a little bit of feedback for your retro. And here you can just, imagine that this is someone sending you a follow-up question. But essentially, you can use the scales question type, and you can set custom low and high value labels, and then just ask your team to rate how they felt with this. So here, just submit whatever numbers that you would want to submit, and you can see how your team's feeling. And I think the wonderful thing with this question type is that not only can you see like the team average, but you can also see the actual spread. So sometimes it might be that here, for example, we have pretty much a bell curve, but here there is a little bit more spread. yeah, Rick in the live stream chat loves this. So do I. And something that is really fun with this and just kind of like using Mentimeter for following up and getting feedback is that if you would have a presentation with this question type, and you would, maybe send it after your Q4 retro. And then for your Q1 retro, you maybe want like the same kind of feedback. You can send the same presentation again, and then you'll have essentially like answers on 2 sessions, and you can measure the trends over time. We have not run this presentation before, um, so we can't unfortunately show a trend, but you would be able to kind of see how people's answers have changed over time. So this is a really, really great question type to use. All right, let's see what we have next here. All right, so that was kind of the majority of the question types that we wanted to share with you. And there's a couple of more as well, but we're not going to dig into too much detail into those. But something that we wanted to just tell you a little bit about is that when you're using Mentimeter in your own team, you're of course making your team's life slightly easier, giving them, more opportunity to speak up and being a better presenter and organizer yourself. But when you're using it in your organization, it is a tool to actually boost your organization's productivity and learning. You can also, share successful presentations that you have had as templates, or just invite collaborators to them so that you can work together on, for example, creating your retro. Say that you're in a IT or a product department, and maybe it's two product teams that have collaborated on the same project. Both of the product managers, for example, or area leads can collaborate on the same presentation, both create the questions that are relevant for them, and then present it together and also get the results accessible together. So in this way, you can work smart, which I think goes a lot into work-life balance. I think we need to work smart to have that work-life balance. So that would be one tip from us to
You
you.
work smart, then you can finish like early.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, and by giving people the ability to, voice their true opinions, you're also essentially the leader that changes the organizational culture into becoming much more inclusive by giving everyone equal voice, which we believe is very important. All right, and on that note, I think I'm going to hand over to Paula to talk a little bit Mentimeter for organizations.
Yes. So with Mentimeter Enterprise, we're basically, when we talk about enterprise, we're like talking more like, as you said, like more about like a full organization, or where there's like a specific need or a special need to have like, separate groups, or have a dashboard explaining how people in the company, the organization have been using Mentimeter, have like your own company branding, have, as it says there, like more like security and control. For example, if you need like SSO, or you have like more security related questions, and if you feel like Mentimeter can really grow within your organization, it is the easiest path to then like grow. Let's put it that way. And then, of course, you would get premium support from us. Mentimeter Enterprise starts at 10 licenses, but I also want to say that even if you are in an organization, you can of course use like or other plans, which is something that I think that is very important to understand. And that anything that is more like a team of like 10 people, then we take it from the sales side and we help you out to create a plan. And we can actually also like give you, if you are from a big organization, then we can help you also understand who uses Mentimeter and how big the usage is, if you really like it and you want to like help implement it within the company, so then more people have access to it. So yeah, that's like a little bit about like Mentimeter Enterprise. I don't want to get too much into it, but like if you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A. Like about anything about like Mentimeter usage. If there's anything in the presentation that you want to go back to, but yeah, there will be like a quick form, which like I will get back to tomorrow probably, and answer to anyone who wants to be contacted by the sales teams, which is me right now. So I'll probably see you soon if you do, right. um there we go. And as I said, it's at least 10 members using Mentimeter. It can be, as I said, like specific departments or like across full organizations, and of course like a lot of different use cases. Because when we talk about organizations, of course we have to take into consideration public administration, NGOs, higher education, schools, and everything between. But also we want to help you have a good journey with us, and actually set or help you set a plan for Mentimeter's usage within the company, because of course it's very hard to go from 0 to 100. So it's better to sometimes do it like slow, but having the right usage within it, so that you actually see the return on investment from day one. And now we'll get to the questions. Oh, great. Upvotes. I love upvotes. That's actually how we, here at Mentimeter, when we do our town hall meetings, that's how we decide also which questions to take by people upvoting questions. So when you set audience base, can people vote only once, or can they do the survey several times? They could do it several times. So I would recommend telling them that they can only do it once. Or maybe at the beginning, in the first question, you can have an open-ended question that asks them for their email. So that way you know that these people have voted. So that would be my recommendation. Do you have any other recommendation, Ostra?
I believe with some of our questions, I mean, you can do certain like limitations, whether people can submit a survey once or twice, but I believe if they would like open up the link again, it would be an opportunity for them to do it again. So technically they can do it more than once, but you can, if you trust the people on your team, you can limit their opportunity a little bit.
Yeah. So that question was answered. Any fun question types you can show? Do you have anything to show there? That I mean, I think we have like a lot in like templates.
Yes, I think that I saw another question here
Mm.
around if we can show the trends in any
Uh-huh.
way. So I
Yeah.
can actually maybe just
Do
change
you
the
have one to
screen a
show?
little bit here. Yes, I can show
Ah,
it from another presentation that we run. So I'll just try to set that up. So this is a webinar as well, actually, that we run for people that want to learn how to use specific features a little bit more. So
mm.
here is the last scales question that we asked in the last session that we had. And if you would like to see the trends, then what you do is hover on the left-hand side of your scales question and click on show trends. And then this is what I meant. So we have run this other webinar a couple of different times, and we have asked the same questions or had the same scales question in 10 sessions here. In session 6, we did not have a vote on it, but in the other sessions we did. So then you can see how the different questions have changed, or the answers have changed over time. So this could be really useful if you're looking at anything like stress levels for your team, maybe. or if you're looking to see whether the content of the retrospective itself was relevant for the team, if they feel like, they had any good takeaways and so on. And then you can just, of course, it's a little bit of self-leadership, I suppose, to actually then, use that information in some way, but you can get a little bit of data with the trends. So that would be the answer there. I guess we can mark the question as answered once we find it.
And once I find it, but then that one is answered. Is there a limit size of the audience to the size of audience we can use the Mentimeter? Quiz. So the quiz slides types, which we haven't used here, do have a 2,000 voters. So like the quiz questions are basically the ones where you get like a leaderboard where you are actually like getting points. So those are the only ones that you can have that you have a limit, which is 2,000 people. But then like in all the other slide types, I think it's 10,000 voters.
And I think with some of the questions as well, if you do want to use it with a very large audience, you can always reach out to our support. So in our intercom chat, say if you have like a really huge event coming up, and I think there's some additional technical support that we can help with to make sure that things are running smoothly, or some technical advice and so on. Yeah. But overall, it's possible to run with really big audiences.
At least from what we know. And our clients tell us, of course. How do you quickly create content after gathering feedback? Do we need two separate separations, one for feedback and the other one to create content? I mean, there are like different ways you can go about this. You could either do everything in the same presentation and then just hide the slides that you don't want them to see. So for example, like you can have the first one that is like for the first ones, gathering feedback. Once you have it, then you just can hide them while you're presenting the new ones. Or you can create two different presentations and copy to like the feedback slides to the other one and then delete them once it's done. So there are different ways to go about this.
Yeah, I would also just add that I think with gathering or like creating content after gathering feedback, like what we would suggest is actually like sending out the like planning your retro survey, like maybe a day or 2 days before, just so you have the time then to take into consideration what they've submitted. But you can also do, as Paula said, with having two presentations or the same presentation, is just, it requires you to be quite hacky, or not requires you to be hacky, but I think it's quite high pressure to do it on the spot, and everyone should do what they're most comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everybody has like their different ways of working with Menti also. So I will leave it up to you. But if you want like the best advice, you can go to the Mentimeter Academy and learn a little bit there also on how to use it, and maybe try it out a couple of times. Play around with it. Can Mentimeter be used like a regular survey? Sent out via email for response. Yes, it won't be sent automatically. So basically, what you will need to do is copy the link or to the voting link, and then send it via email to the people that you want to that you want to answer the survey, or like send it out in a group. However you prefer to do it. Maybe you have your own like Slack group and everybody needs to vote, so you can also do it there. So different ways that one can, or you can send the Menti voting like numbers and that's it. So it would depend on how you want people to answer. We're going. Yes, there is, and it is what I'm using right now. Which where did it go? That's because, and it's the Menti mode. So it's what I have right here with me, which is what I'm using to answer the questions. Basically, like you open the Mentimeter in your phone, and then you can just open the Menti mode. That presentation's Menti mode, like on the three dots. um, and then you will have it in your phone. So then if you're also like presenting in like in front of an audience and you only have like a back screen, then you can also know what's happening on like your hand, so you don't have to be like looking back all the time, which is also not nice for people.
I think like something to add as well is like Paula and I have been using Mentimeter during today. So I'm actually sharing the screen and the slides, and Paula has used the Mentimeter to switch between slides when she's presenting. And this is really helpful if you're, if you have collaborated on a presentation with a colleague, or a Mentimeter with a colleague, and then you have like multiple people actually speaking as well. So you can use the Mentimeter really smoothly, so that everyone is able to control the presentation, who needs to. And there's not, Astra, can you please switch to the next slide and so on. So it makes things really easy.
Exactly, that's true. um, I'm not sure what this means because I don't speak German, but if you fill in the form after this, then I can get back to you, or I'll ask one of my German speaking colleagues to help me out with this. But please fill in the form so that I can get back to you and answer. Um, Hello. Can you use the rating question in the same presentation to show the trend of a learning before a training session? Um, okay, the rating question simply to show that.
I think this could be around the trends. So, for example, if you or if you have a scales question, and maybe it's three questions, and you want the people to rank them on a scale of 1 to 7, like how well do you understand? I don't know. Full stack coding is the first thing that comes to my mind, and maybe before the session, the training session, the answer is 2. During the session, maybe it's a 3. Afterwards, maybe it's a 5. Maybe this is what the asker meant. And in that case, yes, you can. You would just need to use the same question, or the same Mentimeter with the same question within the same presentation, and then reset the results
Yeah.
between, before, and then reset the results during, and then reset the results, and then after. And then you will be able to see like essentially a trend with 3 time points, and you can see um, uh, how the numbers for each of the like statements have changed.
Yeah. And you
Yeah,
won't
sorry.
lose the information also. You will have it in Excel. Like when you like export the results, you will have all the information. It won't just appear on like your presentation. So that's also very good to know. The information does not disappear. And thank you, Rick, for translating the question. Yes, we do have special prices for universities. Again, if you want to talk more about it, then please fill out the form at the end so that we can get to it. Um, mm, mm, uh, Wait, just answer it. Um, can you use the same join code? um like this, the presentation has one code, depends on like which plan you are. Like if you're anything but free, basically you can have it for 2, 7, or 14 days. After those days it will reset. So the answer is it's the same joining code, except if it goes beyond that time, basically.
But something good to note on that is that you can also join and vote via a link, and the link never expires. So the link will
That's
always be the same. I believe it's the same with the QR code as well. Um, yeah, so then the 8 number code will reset, but then the link and the QR code will not.
cool. Every day you learn something new. um, and confirming audience pains mean the audience can go ahead and vote before the presenter gets to the question. I wouldn't recommend if you are the one presenting, because then people will be able to go through all the questions before you even finish your presentation. So personally, I would use it more to like send out a survey rather than using it in a meeting. If you trust the people that you're giving the meeting to, uh, I mean, yes, they will be able to vote before you show the question, because they are the ones in control of the presentation, basically. If you, yeah, if you have an audience space, because the audience has to control. But they won't be able to control like Q&A if you no, but you cannot have Q&A if you have it in audience space. So it should be fine.
All right, and it looks like we have wrapped up the Q&A so far. If you do have any more questions, pop them into the Menti, and I think we can take like one more if needed. But in the meantime, I'll see if I can switch the slide. We would like your feedback on what you thought about today's webinar. So whether the session was engaging, whether the content was relevant for you and your role, and did you learn some new ways of using Mentimeter? So we'd love to hear from you.
And there we have an again the voting question. So if you have 4 presentations, can I set the presentation to use the same code? No, each presentation gets its unique code. So also you cannot choose the numbers. The numbers are randomly selected, basically. So it's not that, yeah, you can just choose whichever number. And also, like, as we said, like, if it passes the days, then the numbers change. So that we can have a lot of presentations going on. If not, could you imagine like if every presentation was like open, we would have like an infinite number of like each presentation would have like a number.
Would get a little bit insane.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your input. So what Paula and I will do is, for the next time that we run a similar session, we will use the same question type and then see how we did next time and compared to this time. All right. And we have one last thing to get through. Paula, would you like to just explain this last bit one more time?
Yes. So if you're interested in like either, for example, if you're interested in your organization's numbers, how they're using, not how they're using Mentimeter, but like how many people are they, like maybe per country, or if you would like for us to help you like create a plan for your organization, or even if you're interested in like 10 licenses for your own department, please fill in the form or reach out on the enterprise page. There's a chat there, and the chat goes directly to me. So that's also a way to engage with me. So there you can also get in contact with us. But of course, like you can write in the enterprise page, and one of me or my colleagues will get back to you. But yes, feel free to to get in and let's like discuss the usage of Mentimeter within your organizations. And what else? Yes, if you do have any questions regarding how to use Mentimeter, and like about like a specific like question type, or any of the questions like about voting, etc., you can we have our tutorials page. We have the next level webinars. We also those are more like related to how to use Mentimeter, right, Ultra?
Yeah, exactly. So going through a couple of different question types and how to set them up and analyze the data.
Yeah, and also I think that the Mentimeter Academy, Austria sent the link, is very interesting to do, to understand how to make the most out of Mentimeter, even if you're a beginner or are like not. I think it's like intermediate usage. I don't think that there's an advanced yet. But also, if you are like teaching, for example, we do have a new one that is about learning. Um, so if you also need to use Mentimeter for learning, it's a great way to do it. And now that we talked about surveys, also there's like a special like mini course that teaches you how to do surveys in Mentimeter.
Exactly. Well, we are at the end of our session here. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We're really hoping that you learned something new and that you had a great and engaging 45 minutes with us. As I said in the beginning, this webinar is recorded and you will automatically get the recording to your email as a automated follow-up email from Livestorm. And then you will also get the presentation that we used during today's webinar. So you will be able to copy and reuse some of the slides that we demoed today. So thank you everyone for joining. We're getting some happy holidays in the
Yeah, happy
chat
holidays
and
for all of
we're
you too. Whatever
wishing
you're
you the same.
celebrating, happy holidays. Happy end of the year also.
Yes. All right. Hey everyone, and thank you once again. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.